Expression of regret. Place. In 3 different layers of Asian America, where in 2012, Congresswoman Judy Chu reads a resolution to Congress. In 2021, where Robin watches a recent Instagram video. And in 1949, where Tu Yi writes a letter to her future great-grandchildren living in the 21st century.
Whereas many Chinese came to the United States in the 19th and 20th centuries, as did people from other countries, in search of the opportunity to create a better life for themselves and their families.
Go back to where you came from. Ching chong, China virus, Kung flu. China virus, Kung flu. Gook, chink, slanty eyes. Go back to where you came from.
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! I've never even been to China. I don't even like Chinese food. Like that even matters. We need to stop eating so much darn Chinese food. Don't Americans realize that the Chinese are taking too much of our money already? Shoot me now.
I told him, no, sir. My husband came over first without my son and I from Guangzhou, China. Yes, sir, in 1939. But I cannot show you proof of our marriage. I wanted to say, because our marriage is not recognized in America, because I was not going to be allowed into this country with our young son, so we came over pretending to be someone else's family, someone who already had his citizenship papers, because my husband could not get his own, because the United States had laws that said that most Chinese were not good enough to be here. For 60 years, sir. But I knew that would get me into much deeper trouble than I was prepared to be in.
Whereas the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 underscored the belief of some senators at that time that the Chinese people were unfit to be naturalized. The social characteristics of the Chinese were revolting. Chinese immigrants were like parasites. And the United States is under God a country of Caucasians, a country of white men to be governed by white men.
At first, I thought he was just making conversation, telling me about his teenage years, growing up in Kansas City, never feeling like he fit in high school. What do I know? I thought, here's this old guy, a doorman in our new building, being all friendly, and maybe I'll like it in New York City. Maybe he'll be like Carlton to my Rhoda Morgenstern. Hey, I watched Nick at Night. Maybe he'll be all like, it's John, your doorman. I've got your mom's dry cleaning. Or, it's John, your doorman. The water's gonna be turned off in an hour. Just wanna let you know. Or, it's John, your doorman. Don't worry, I didn't fit in at first either. Instead, he said, I never fit in at high school, but I got drafted and went to Nam, and then I fit in with all the other guys wanted to kill the gooks and chinks and rat bastards. He never said like you, but I can feel it. Every day he stares at me now and says nothing more.
I'm his wife, I say. For 23 years, I've been his wife. In China, we pledged ourselves to each other's family, and I am his family.
I want to say, actually, John, my doorman, I was born in San Francisco, California, America, and I've never even been to Vietnam, but I hear it's a beautiful country. I swear I'm gonna save up my money and I'm gonna do it someday.
Whereas each of the congressional debates concerning issues of Chinese civil rights, naturalization, and immigration involved intensely racial rhetoric, with many members of Congress claiming that all persons of Chinese descent were unworthy of American citizenship, incapable of assimilation into American society, and dangerous to the political and social integrity of the United States.
I'm gonna get it. That operation, you know?
No matter what the United States government says, he is my husband.
That operation where you can get your eyelids cut so your eyes look more, you know, normal.
Whereas between 1910 and 1940, the Angel Island Immigration Station implemented the Chinese exclusion laws by confining Chinese persons for up to 2 years, interrogating Chinese persons, and providing a model for similar immigration stations at other locations along the Pacific coast and in Hawaii.
And I have a right to see my husband, don't I?
Whereas the express discrimination in these federal statutes politically and racially stigmatized Chinese immigration into the United States, enshrining in law the exclusion of the Chinese from the political process and the promise of American freedom.
I want to say, people, please just stop asking me where I'm really from.
Give us you're tired, you're poor.
I want to say, stop acting like I don't belong here.
Whereas wartime enemy forces used the anti-Chinese legislation passed in Congress as evidence of American racism against the Chinese, attempting to undermine the Chinese-American alliance and allied military efforts.
Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
I want to say, do it because I am more than the shape of my eyes. Do it for my 90-year-old grandfather who served in the Korean War and hangs an American flag outside of his house every 4th of July. But who the cops threw down on the sidewalk because they thought he couldn't understand them when they said, move aside.
When I first heard those words, when I first got here, I was so happy.
But no matter how much I try, I'll never look normal, will I?
My husband said, this is America, land of opportunity, land of breathing free. This is our new home.
Hey, you coronavirus! Go back where you came from and take your dirty disease with you.
We thought things would change after the Exclusion Act was, how do you say, reviewed?
Repealed.
Repealed.
Whereas 6 decades of federal legislation deliberately targeting Chinese by race restricted the capacity of generations of individuals and families to openly pursue the American dream without fear, and fostered an atmosphere of racial discrimination that deeply prejudiced the civil rights of Chinese immigrants.
There was this law, Google it, it'll make you sick. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. It only lasted 60 years, but hey, it was repealed in 1943, just in time for everyone to shift their hatred towards the Japanese.
Whereas diversity is one of our nation's greatest strengths. And while this nation was founded on the principle that all persons are created equal, the laws enacted by Congress in the late 19th and early 20th centuries that restricted the political and civil rights of persons of Chinese descent violated that principle.
I just want to see him, my husband, one last time.
I was so super stoked to vote in November. My first time. I can change the world now. I thought, I am going to change the world. So I say to my best friend, Ashley, hey, let's go vote together. And she says, but you're not even American. How are you going to vote, silly? My best friend.
Whereas although an acknowledgement of the Senate's actions that contributed to discrimination against persons of Chinese descent will not erase the past. Such an expression will acknowledge and illuminate the injustices in our national experience and help to build a better and stronger nation.
I want to say, you know, my great-great-grandfather came here for the gold rush in 1852. So actually, I really am American for a real long time. Silly.
But I had no rights without proof that I am his wife in the eyes of our new home, America.
Whereas the Senate deeply regrets the enactment of the Chinese Exclusion Act and related discriminatory laws that legitimized racial discrimination and induced trauma that persists within the Chinese community.
My grandchildren and great-grandchildren, you will be US citizens.
Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
I pray that you will breathe free.
Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Senate acknowledges that this framework of anti-Chinese legislation, including the Chinese Exclusion Act, is incompatible with the basic founding principles recognized in the Declaration of Independence, that all persons are created equal.
I want to say, I am much more than the shape of my eyes or the color of my skin.
Deeply regrets passing 6 decades of legislation directly targeting the Chinese people for physical and political exclusion and the wrongs committed against Chinese and American citizens of Chinese descent who suffered under these discriminatory laws.
I'm much more than the place I was born.
And reaffirms its commitment to preserving the same civil rights and constitutional protections for people of Chinese and other Asian descent in the United States accorded to all others, regardless of their race or ethnicity.
I heard the Senate issued an expression of regret for all those laws that said, how we didn't deserve to be here. A congresswoman from California, the first Chinese American woman ever elected to Congress, a Chinese American congresswoman named Judy Chu, wanted to say, enough is enough, and then did.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese Exclusion Act enshrined injustice into our legal code. It stopped the Chinese and the Chinese alone from immigrating, from ever becoming naturalized citizens, and ever having the right to vote.
Her Proposal 683 became only the fourth resolution of regret in the past 30 years to be passed by both houses of Congress. An expression of regret.
The last generation of people personally affected by these laws is leaving us. And finally, Congress has expressed the sincere regret that Chinese Americans deserve and reaffirmed our commitment to the civil rights of all people.
An expression of regret.
For all those laws and years when it was legal to say we didn't belong here.
For 60 years.
60 years.
I wonder, what will it be like for you 60 years from now?
An expression of regret.
For my children and their children and your children, I wonder.
I want to say, thank you, Judy Chu.
Thank you, Judy Chu.
Thank you, Judy Chu. Give us your tired, your poor.
Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
I want to say, I believe.
I believe.
I want to.
Believe.
That things will be different now.